Welcome to the Sunday Signal. I am David Richards MBE, and this is the audio version of my weekly newsletter on AI, business, and the future of work. This is issue 46, Sunday the 22nd of March 2026. This week's title is First the Office, Now the Factory. Everything is next. I want to start with two numbers, 65,700. That is how many roles have been eliminated or marked for elimination so far in 2026. We are not yet through the first quarter. $100 billion. That is what Jeff Bezos is trying to raise to buy established manufacturers and overhaul them with AI. Those two numbers belong together. And this week, I'm going to explain why. For months, the people most alarmed by AI displacement have been software developers, analysts, lawyers, finance professionals. White-collar workers watching their entry-level roles quietly disappear. That story is real, and it is accelerating. But a second front has opened. Bezos is not coming for the office, he is coming for the factory, the chip maker, the aerospace plant, the automotive line, the physical world that everyone assumed was different, was protected, was safe. It was not different, it is just next. This week I have three stories. First, the Yorkshire Post column I published this week, why the full Monty was about steelworkers, and why this time it is bankers. Second, the Bezos Fund, what Project Prometheus actually is, what $100 billion buys, and what it means for every job we assumed required human hands. Third, the robot tax, what happens economically and socially when the office and the factory go at the same time, why governments are already reaching for blunt tools, and why those tools will not be enough on their own. The Sunday Signal Tech, an AI layoff tracker, also returns this week with a significant new entry, HSBC, the first globally systemically important bank to name AI as the mechanism of a workforce reduction in formal planning documents. It will not be the last. The Sunday Signal is published every Sunday at newsletter.djr.ai and is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you find it useful, please share it with someone who needs to understand what is happening before it happens to them. Let us get into it. The bottom line, up front, 65,700. That is how many roles have been eliminated or marked for elimination in the first 11 weeks of 2026. Not over a year, not over a cycle, 11 weeks. AI is not starting at the bottom of the labour market, it is starting in the middle. And the pace is not slowing, it is accelerating. This week has three stories, and they belong together. The first is the Yorkshire Post column published this week. The full Monty was about Sheffield steelworkers who lost the thing that defined them. This time it is bankers, analysts, lawyers, and accountants facing the same structural shock. The white-collar professional class assumed its credentials would protect it. They will not. The second story is the one that changes the terms of the debate entirely. Jeff Bezos is in early-stage talks to raise up to $100 billion for a fund designed to buy established manufacturers and overhaul them with AI, chipmaking, aerospace, automotive, defense. The people who told you that physical, hands-on work was safe from this wave were reasoning from the last one. Bezos just confirmed, with the most ambitious private investment thesis in history, that they were wrong. The third story is what happens when the office and the factory go at the same time. The economics, the social fracture, and the governance crisis no government is prepared for. Story 1. The full Monty was about steelworkers. This time, it is bankers. The remake opens in 2036. A glossy corporate film flickers on screen. The city of London at sunrise. Glass towers glowing. Young analysts moving at speed between meetings and markets. Screens flashing. Deals closing. A voiceover promises that for those with talent and drive, finance will always reward human judgment. Then it stops. Silence. The trading floor is empty. Screens are dark. The work has not moved to New York or Singapore. It has not been outsourced. It has simply dissolved into software. In the corner, two former bankers in scuffed locs are trying to wrench a server from its rack. hoping to strip copper from the very machines that replace them. And it sounds far-fetched until you remember we have seen it before. The original Full Monty was not about abstract economic forces. It was about Sheffield steelworkers who lost the thing that gave them identity, pride, and purpose. When the work went, it did not just take wages, it took status, structure, and meaning. For a generation, that kind of shock was understood as a working class problem, something that happened to people who worked with their hands. White-collar professionals assumed they were insulated. Degrees, offices, and credentials were meant to protect them. That assumption is now breaking down. In the first 11 weeks of 2026, major technology companies have announced or are developing cuts totaling approximately 45,724 roles, based on tracker aggregated estimates from layoffs.fyi and Rational FX. That number is already out of date. By the time you hear this, it has crossed 65,700. The developing stories, including HSBC and the heavily reported Meta cuts, suggest the real figure is still climbing. Behind the headlines, something more important is happening. Roles are not being replaced, teams are not being rebuilt. The first rung of the career ladder is quietly being removed. AI is not starting at the bottom of the labour market. It is starting in the middle. Software, finance, business operations, and law dominate usage, and the gains increase with complexity. The more educated and valuable the task, the more it can be accelerated. The real shift is not speed. It is what happens to the job itself. When AI takes over drafting, analysis, coding, or planning, what remains for the human is the lower value residue: coordination, oversight, exception handling. The job does not vanish overnight. Its intellectual core erodes. The steel industry followed exactly this path. Technology did not simply replace workers. It redefined the work, broke skilled roles into simpler tasks, and reduced the economic value of labour over time. That same dynamic is now moving through the office. The clearest signal is not layoffs, it is hiring. Firms are no longer creating the entry-level roles that once trained the next generation. The ladder is not being climbed, it is being removed. And when you remove the first rung, you do not just lose jobs, you break the system that produces experience, judgment, and expertise. When deindustrialization swept through cities like Sheffield, the people most affected did not have the influence to force a rapid response. The adjustment came late, and often in the form of retraining programs that never quite matched the scale of the problem. The professional class will insist its work is different. It always does, right up to the point where it is not. Story 2. Bezos has $100 billion and he is coming for the factory. There is a comfortable argument that many in manufacturing still reach for. Software jobs, yes. Finance, perhaps. But you cannot automate a factory. You cannot AI your way through a chip-making line. The physical world is different. It is not different. Jeff Bezos is in early-stage talks to raise up to $100 billion for a new investment vehicle. The pitch documents, as reported by the Wall Street Journal on the 19th of March and confirmed by Reuters, the New York Times, Forbes, and Bloomberg, describe it as a manufacturing transformation vehicle. The strategy is brutally simple. Buy established manufacturers in chipmaking, defense, aerospace, and automotive. Then overhaul them with AI, not gradually, decisively. The fund operates alongside Project Prometheus, Bezos' secretive AI startup, co-founded with former Google X executive Vic Bajaj. Prometheus is not building a chatbot. It is building what its team calls physical AI, models that understand and simulate real-world physics, engineering, and manufacturing processes, airflows, stress points, thermal dynamics, the things that govern how physical objects are made, tested, and repaired. Prometheus launched in November 2025, received $6.2 billion in initial funding, and Bezos serves as co-CEO, his first operational executive role since stepping down at Amazon in 2021. That detail tells you everything about how seriously he takes this. The $100 billion fund would give Prometheus something a laboratory cannot provide: real factories, real supply chains, real workforces to transform. The scale is historic. The only comparable private fund ever raised is SoftBank's original Vision Fund in 2017, also $100 billion. But SoftBank bet on startups. Bezos is betting on established industrial businesses and replacing their operating model with AI. That is not a venture bet. That is a restructuring of the physical economy. Bezos has been personally on the roadshow. Sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East, asset managers in Singapore. No money has closed yet. But the ambition is not a rumour. The direction is clear. Fewer people, more machines, longer operating hours, and a shift from labour to systems, not incremental improvement, structural replacement. Consider what this means for the jobs we assumed were protected by their physicality. Manual assembly, replaced by multi-purpose robotic arms running continuous shifts. Quality control, replaced by AI computer vision that detects microscopic defects faster and more consistently than any human inspector. Logistics, managed by autonomous mobile systems. Maintenance directed by AI co-pilots, overlaid on the physical hardware through augmented reality, reducing the need for years of accumulated trade expertise. The roles that survive are systems engineering and orchestration, high demand, high skill, numerically small. Last week I described the one-person unicorn, companies generating extraordinary revenue with workforces of dozens rather than hundreds. Cursor, Midjourney, Gamma. That model was about software. Bezos is extending it to chip makers, aerospace manufacturers, and automotive plants. The same logic, a different industry, a bigger disruption. Previous waves of automation replaced specific machines, a lathe, a press, a welding arm. Everything else remained human. Project Prometheus is designed to replace entire factory ecosystems, not the weld, the whole floor. There are 425,000 unfilled manufacturing roles in the United States right now that require AI literacy. The jobs that will survive this wave already exist. The problem is that the current workforce does not yet have the skills to fill them, and the retraining infrastructure to close that gap does not yet exist at anything approaching the scale required. The people who told you the physical world was safe were reasoning from the last wave. This is a different wave. Story 3. The robot tax is coming, and it will not be enough. Governments are already talking about a robot tax, a levy on automated output, a charge on compute, a payroll equivalent paid by companies that replace workers with machines. The debate is live in Brussels, in Sacramento, in Westminster. It sounds like a solution. It is not a solution. It is a symptom, a sign that the fiscal foundation of the modern state is cracking and policymakers are reaching for the nearest available tool. Here is why it matters and why it will not be enough on its own. Every previous wave of automation has had a partial quality to it. The loom replaced hand weaving but left the mill. The assembly line replaced craftsmen but created line operators. The spreadsheet replaced clerks but created accountants. In every case, displacement was sector specific. New roles absorbed the shock, eventually, if imperfectly. What Bezos is building, alongside the AI native software companies I have described in recent issues of this newsletter, is something without clear historical precedent. Simultaneous displacement across both the white-collar professional economy and the physical manufacturing economy, not sequentially, at the same time. The economics are stark. Manufacturing is the last refuge of labour arbitrage. For decades, if wages rose in one country, production moved to another: Vietnam, Indonesia, Mexico. The competitive advantage of low-cost human labour has kept hundreds of millions employed in the developing world and provided a brake on wage deflation in the West. That brake is about to be released. If an AI-run factory in Yorkshire costs the same to operate as one in Vietnam, because the primary input is no longer human labour, but electricity and chips, production comes home. Not because of trade policy or political will, because of arithmetic. And when that happens, the entire logic of globalization begins to unwind. This creates something economists are only beginning to model: a manufacturing renaissance in wealthy nations, accompanied by severe economic disruption in developing ones. Countries that have spent 50 years building export manufacturing capacity will find that advantage evaporate. That is not a domestic British story. It is a global destabilisation event. At home, the social impact follows the fault line I have been tracking in this newsletter since issue 40. The high agency tier thrives: engineers, AI orchestrators, systems architects, people who direct these systems rather than operate within them. Their leverage is extraordinary. A small team managing a Prometheus-driven production line can outperform a workforce of hundreds. The displaced tier faces something harder than unemployment. It faces irrelevance. A factory foreman with 30 years of floor knowledge, a bank analyst with a first from Durham. The AI replacing them is not approximating, it is outperforming consistently at a fraction of the cost. There is a governance crisis buried in these numbers that governments are not yet confronting at the scale the problem demands. If 40 to 50% of manufacturing employment is automated alongside significant white-collar displacement, the income tax and national insurance base fractures. The modern state is built on taxing labour. Remove labour and you remove the foundation. Everything else is detail. The debate about a robot tax, a compute levy, or a tax on AI-generated output is not a theoretical policy question. It is a fiscal emergency arriving in slow motion, and underneath the economics is something the data cannot capture. Sheffield in the 1980s was not just an unemployment story, it was a meaning story. Work is not merely income, it is identity, structure and purpose. The full Monty was not about poverty, it was about what men become when the thing that defined them is taken away. We are about to run that experiment again, simultaneously, across every class, every sector, every region. The handloom weavers of 1810 could see the machines arriving. They understood what would happen. Their response has been misrepresented by history as mindless rage against progress. It was not. It was a demand that progress should not come at the cost of people who had no other options. That demand was ignored. We should be very careful about ignoring it again. The Sunday Signal Tech and AI layoff tracker, updated weekly. As of Sunday, the 22nd of March, 2026, total roles eliminated or reported for elimination in 2026, approximately 65,700, up from 45,724 as of the 14th of March. The most significant new entry this week is HSBC, which disclosed plans to reduce its workforce by up to 20,000 roles over 3 to 5 years, explicitly citing AI automation in back and middle office functions. This is the first globally systemically important bank to name AI as the mechanism of reduction in formal planning documents. It will not be the last. The confirmed cuts this week. Atlassian, 1,600 roles, 10% of staff, stated reason, a pivot to AI. Block Incorporated, approximately 4,000 roles, leaner structure and AI productivity, share price up 25% on the day. WiseTech Global, 2,000 roles, 29% of the company, AI native workflow replacement, share price up 11%. Amazon, AWS, 16,000 corporate roles on a rolling basis, management flattening and reallocation to AI infrastructure. In developing status, Meta, with reports of up to 16,000 roles tied to offsetting its $135 billion AI capital expenditure program. Oracle, large-scale cuts with no official confirmation. HSBC, up to 20,000 roles over 3 to 5 years. The pattern is consistent. Every company that has explicitly tied cuts to AI has seen its share price rise or hold. The market is not mourning these jobs. It is pricing in the leverage. Final thought. Last week I wrote about the one-person unicorn, the company that generates 100 million in recurring revenue with a workforce measured in dozens. That story was about software. This week, Bezos has extended the same thesis to steel, chips, aerospace, and automotive. The physical world is not different. It is just next. The Luddites did not stop the loom. But the political pressure they generated, the social disruption they created, eventually produced the Factory Acts, child labour protections, workplace safety law, the early architecture of a social contract between capital and labour. The machine won, but it forced a renegotiation. What we need now is not a fight against AI. It is a serious, adult, politically difficult conversation about what the social contract looks like when the machine can do the job better than the human, about who owns the productivity gains, about what replaces the purpose that work once provided. That conversation is not happening at the scale the problem demands. It will happen eventually. The only question is whether we start it now, while choices still exist, or wait until the factory floor is dark and the trading floor is empty, and two former bankers are stripping copper from a server rack. That is issue 46 of the Sunday Signal, first the office, now the factory. The question is not whether this reaches your sector, it is whether you are ready when it does. If you found this useful, share it with one person who needs to hear it before it happens to them. The full written version with all sources and links is at newsletter.djr.ai. Subscribe there for free and get every issue on Sunday morning. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please follow the show. It helps more people find it. Until next Sunday, I am David Richards MBE. Thank you for listening.